They tried to toast me into a grave so my grandson could be toughened. But I changed the glass. I'm Malcolm Reed, 68 years old, South Atlanta born, West End rebuilt, and the ink on my $32 million exit was barely dry when the string lights on my terrace flicked on like blessings. I'd sold Reed Weatherworks, the storm sensor outfit I bootstrapped out of a collapsed garage, and a stubborn jaw. 3 decades of grit, finally letting out one long breath. Sax crooned low through the garden speakers, a little Coltrane for the folks who still keep vinyl. Crystal chimed. My terrace looked like prosperity with its shoes off. My son, Darius, had posted up near the bar. Tall like me, but always leaning at an angle like life was a wind he planned to sail. His wife, Kiara, wore a smile the color of new money, high gloss, fragile, and not built for heavy lifting. My grandson, Jalen, 7, wasn't there. He was at my neighbor Miss Alberta's, in dinosaur pajamas, if I know that boy. Jalen's got legs like springs and a kindness that needs shielding. Darius calls cold discipline. I call it cruelty you can measure in degrees. The first hint came small as a fingernail, a paper twist, no bigger than a sugar packet, palmed in Kiara's hand as she drifted by the drink table, chatting about legacy like it was an accessory. I saw it because if storms taught me anything, it's to read a room like weather, not for thunder, but for the pressure drop you only feel when you've learned to pay attention. Her fingers tilted. A pale dust kissed the surface of my red. She stirred it back with the lazy grace of a woman fixing garnish. My chest didn't seize. My mouth didn't shout. My breath remembered how to be quiet. Years of boardrooms trained me for this muscle, the one that keeps an old black man upright when the floor slides. Monday's wire clears before noon. My closing attorney, Aisha Cole, was saying in my ear, "Pop that champagne tonight, Mr. Reed." Monday works, I told her, watching the bloom unfurl in the glass like a rumor finding friends. Something urgent just stepped outside. I hung up. I eased back through the French doors. Candlelight played Pretty on Faces I Love, my oldest running buddy, Ben Carter, my cardiologist, Dr. Patrice Morgan, neighbors who lent me ladders when ladders were all I had. I let my glass sit untouched at the table's edge. Kiara's eyes kept finding it the way a hawk keeps finding a mouse. She was measuring the distance from lip to throat to finish line. "The toast," she chirped, glass bright. "Let's make it memorable," I said. I tapped Darius's elbow. "Help me grab the good flutes, son." He grinned, happy to be useful. He's my height but less ballast, sail without keel. While he ducked inside, I stepped past Charles and May Freeman, Kiara's folks, dressed church sharp and earnest, and slid into warm small talk about retirement. Charles's Merlot sat 18 inches left of my poisoned cab. Same stem, same sheen, same shape. As he talked about fall without bells. 30 years as a principal will give a man bell phantoms. I moved in the tiny choreography of a practiced host, making space for plates that didn't need space. My tainted wine slid to his place. His clean wine slid to mine. 3 seconds. The kind of move you learn after decades rearranging conference tables, so truth feels like dessert instead of surgery. Darius returned, breathless with a good bottle. Kiara tracked my hand as I lifted the now innocent glass. She wanted to swallow the cough, the collapse, an old man's heart submitting to statistics. She forgot who raised Darius. She forgot who fought banks that thought Mr. Reed was a typo. "Family," I called, and the party gathered in a horseshoe. I looked at faces made soft by light and generosity and time. For a breath, I wanted to give them the night I promised. Then I remembered what promises are for. 30 years, I began, and my voice came out steady, of building in a city that taught me to read clouds. 30 years learning who's with you and who's with your wallet. Kiara's smile tightened one molecule. "And if I'm being plain with y'all," I said, "someone at this table just tried to poison me." The garden pulled its breath. Even the saxophone sounded like it checked the exits. Charles lifted his glass halfway. "Don't drink that," I told him, a nail of a sentence. He froze. His eyes touched mine, then the glass, then his daughter. May's hands found prayer without a church. "Arthur Malcolm, please, you must be mistaken." Kiara tried, voice pitched exactly wrong. She reached for a laugh and found a squeak. I was on the phone, I said to the room. I saw a packet hit my wine. Saw it stirred. I switched the glasses when we gathered. Ridiculous, she said, indignation trying to cover a tremor. We can test it, I said, and moved to take Charles's glass. She didn't stumble. She executed. Hip to table. The glass down in a glittering red shatter. Stone drank a throat-colored stain. Oh no, she said. One beat too late for real. I dialed 911. Com borrowed from every deadline I'd ever beat. Suspected poisoning at a residence. I told the dispatcher, then gave the address. No one ingested. Evidence spilled. Darius looked at me like a kid at a dentist, pain already humming. Pop, he said. What are you? I watched her pour, I said, voice level because anger is a generous leak. And if I died tonight, Jalen would grow up in a house where discipline is the porch in January with no coat. That's not grit, that's frost. Leave my son's name out of your performance, Darius snapped, going hard where he always goes hard. Your son is the whole point, I said softer than he expected. Blue strobes stitched the hedges. 2 APD officers and a paramedic team stepped onto the terrace with that tired, practiced compassion you only learn by walking into barbecues and nightmares in the same shift. I'm Malcolm Reed, homeowner, I said. Attempted poisoning. Witnessed. Liquid on the stone. Glass knocked over by the alleged actor when I said we'd test it. Anybody dizzy? Tingling? Nausea? The medic asked. Charles shook his head, color returning. We'd still like to check your vitals, she said. May nodded, eyes a well you could fall into. Do you have the packet? The second officer asked. No, I said, and the air turned its head toward Kiera. I don't have anything, she said, clutch held like a shield. Malcolm's under stress. He misread, he's never liked me. We're going to ask for consent to search your person and your bag, the officer said, nothing but professional in his voice. Darius flinched. Son, I said, not to shame, just to anchor. Let them work. Kiera held the clutch that quarter-second too long, the kind of time only cops and card dealers notice. The officer opened it himself. Lipstick, keys, wallet, hand sanitizer. No packet, he said, then moved to the trash by the bar. A single paper twist clung to the liner, above a tide of napkins. He teased it into an evidence pouch, like it might still have teeth. We'll send the residue and a sample of the spill, he said. We'll also take statements. It should have ended in kinetic order, procedures shuffling us toward a horizon of paperwork, but facts always move slower than fear. Without the original liquid and with the container empty, we're likely looking at delayed toxicology. The officer added, we can't make an arrest tonight. I figured as much, I said. I'm not here for cuffs. I'm here for record. I turned to the officer again. Please note that my grandson resides in their home, and I consider him at risk. I'll follow with family court Monday. Darius flared. You are not taking my boy, he said, voice sharpening the word my like it could cut me. I'm trying to keep him warm, I said. We can both agree that's a decent start. Statements took an hour that felt like both 10 minutes and 10 years. People told what they saw. The packet, the stir, the rush toward the toast, the surgical accident that smashed the only easy proof. Some folks looked angry. Some looked scared. Most looked the way decent people look when a lovely night gets bent into an ugly shape. When the last signature dried, the officers left with a bag of paper and a notebook full of names. Kiera headed for the drive without a look back, engine angry. Darius hovered, caught between the woman he married and the man who raised him. He didn't follow her immediately. He stood there with me in the odd quiet that follows sirens. You did the right thing, Ben said at my shoulder, voice level as a beam. I did the only thing, I said. That's often the same, he answered. The terrace remembered how to be a place for humans. Someone restarted the sacks, someone brought blankets without asking. We cut cake we didn't taste and toasted with water we didn't want, because you've got to mark the shape of a night somehow. When the last car left and the night quit pretending, I walked Charles and May to their sedan. May gripped my sleeve. You saved my husband, she said. I don't know how to hold both thank you and I'm sorry. You don't carry the sorry, I told her. That weight ain't yours. Charles looked over the roof, like a man who'd spent his life telling boys to tuck in their shirts and minds. If you file Monday, he said, let me see it before anyone else does. I will, I said. He gave me the small nod men use when they choose a road they wish didn't exist. Inside, I rinsed crystal dust down the sink until my hand stopped pretending not to shake. The sale portfolio sat on the counter. $32 million of time I could spend the way an elder should spend it, guarding small joys. I wrote block letters big enough for a trembling hand. Call Aisha 8 a.m. family court. Keep temper. Then I underlined one more line. Bring Jalen a coat. Upstairs, the house settled around the decision. I lay in the dark, listening to my heart quiet, picturing a green parka sliding over a small pair of brave shoulders. If I failed tomorrow, I'd fail him to the cold. Tonight, I had not failed. I slept like a man on a runway, eyes closed, ears tuned. At 5, Gray pushed in. Coffee, shower, a slow sweep of the terrace for any shard the crew missed. The stain on the stone had dried into a rust-colored map of nowhere. I took a photo anyway. Paper doesn't forget. By 7, I'd left Aisha a message without adjectives. Witness statements gathered. APD report number recorded. Petition for a temporary order regarding my grandson. Trust locks going on the sale proceeds. I'll accept aggressive, I said into the voicemail and meant it. By noon, Dr. Morgan's note would live in my inbox. Blood alcohol 0. Vitals boring. Cognition where a judge likes it. Because if Kiara's next move was to paint me confused, I was going to hang a portrait of boring health right beside her attempt. But that was for later. For now, I set a children's parka by my door like a promise with sleeves and turned the thermostat up 2 degrees because in my house, warmth would not have to argue its case. I woke up with a list and a pulse that felt like it had been practicing for court. Coffee, shower, sweep the terrace for any last glitter of glass. Photograph the rust-colored stain on the stone. Paper remembers what pride tries to forget. By 7, I'd left Aisha a message that didn't waste oxygen on adjectives. Witness statements gathered. APD report number logged. Petition for a temporary order Jalen. Draft trust to fence sale proceeds for the boy's health and safety. I'll accept aggressive, I said, because sometimes the only way an old man stays calm is by moving fast. Dr. Patrice Morgan worked me into her Sunday. She's the kind of cardiologist who listens to your lungs, like they're telling the truth you won't. You look like you slept next to an alarm, she said. Cuff on my arm. Eyes on me more than the monitor. Party got loud, I said. Not the music. She ran me through the boring parade a judge likes. Blood draw, BAC 0, basic labs, a cognitive quickscreen I could have taken in my sleep. Date, place, count backward by 7s. Draw a clock that looks like it can keep time. I didn't need to prove I was clever. I needed to prove I showed up. You'll have a signed note by noon that says you're offensively ordinary, she said, smiling despite herself. And Malcolm, hydrate. Judges respect men who bring water bottles to wars. On my porch, a notification bloomed from the neighborhood app, the place where lawn fights become opera. A post with no names and too much detail. Sad to see an elder neighbor in distress last night, accusing family of poisoning. Maybe check on him. Compassion emojis marched like ants. Under it, a clipped 12-second video from someone across the hedges, my voice. Someone at this table just tried to poison me. Cut to the glass hitting stone. No packet. No stir. Just calamity and suggestion. Ben texted before I could throw my phone into the compost. Don't read the comments. I already did. Also, Captain of Catering is willing to write a statement. No names, just what she saw. You want? I wanted. He came by with 2 paragraphs neat as a ledger. The packet, the stir, the push to toast, the tactical spill. He signed in front of my scanner, like a man who understands receipts. You did the only thing, he said again, and left me in a house that smelled like coffee and resolve. At 10, Kiara struck first blood the way people do when they don't have facts. They mailed thunder. Cease and desist from a firm with a Midtown address and a logo that thinks very highly of itself. I had, according to them, defamed their client with wild accusations, caused harm to reputation and business interests, and must refrain from contacting the minor child outside scheduled visits. Buried in the third paragraph, if I persisted, they'd pursue an emergency protective order and notify appropriate services regarding signs of elder mental decline. Bones with teeth. No meat. Designed to make a man waste a day on fear instead of filings. I forwarded it to Aisha with the APD number, the photo of the dried stain, the witness statements. She called back from a kitchen that sounded like waffles. "I'll loop in Marcus Bell," she said. "Family law pit bull with a Sunday suit. We'll file first thing. Today, Fortify. Get your documentation in place. And Malcolm, don't take the bait. Lawyers eat bait for brunch." By noon, Dr. Morgan's note hit my inbox like a stamp that says breathe. BAC 0.00, vitals within age expectation. No evidence of acute confusion. I printed it twice. I slid one copy beside deceased and desist so the papers could stare each other down. Lunch was a sandwich I didn't taste and a pad of legal paper I filled with buckets. Shield the boy. Shield the money. For Jalen, petition for temporary order limiting punitive outdoor discipline pending hearing. Motion for structured visitation. Request for child's counsel. Affidavits from party witnesses. Photo of winter porch if I could get it with provenance. For the money, trust with an independent trustee. Distributions only for documented expenses related to Jalen's health, education, safety. No cash waterfalls Darius or Kiera could surf. At 2, Aisha arrived with Marcus, tall, soft-voiced, the kind of man who has learned that volume wastes rulings. "We're not swinging at ghosts," he said, scanning my stack. "We're asking for boring. 3 weekday pickups, return by 7, exchanges at a neutral location, non-punitive discipline, no commentary at handoff. Judges love boring. Boring is control." "Boring is my dream," I said, and met it down to the bones that ache when it rains. We spent the afternoon drafting. Marcus's language had the steady click of a metronome. Dates, times, names, no adjectives. He attached Dr. Morgan's note, the catering captain's affidavit, Ben's statement, the APD report number, the photo of the terrace stain, my written log of last winter's texts where Darius called cold character building, and I called it what it was. "We'll ask for emergency consideration Monday morning," Marcus said. "The weekend judge is a coin toss. The Monday calendar is your friend." Before dusk, I drove to Greenbrier to buy 2 coats, Jalen's size, and the next one up. Wool socks. A knit cap with a dinosaur grinning like it knew something about surviving. I added hot cocoa mix and the kind of marshmallows that make dentists sigh. On the way back, I took the long route past Darius and Kiera Street. Their porch light glowed. Through the blinds I could see TV Blue. I didn't stop. I am many things, stubborn, older, right enough to be dangerous, but I am not built for ambushes. Monday hummed the way bureaucracies hum when they've had a weekend to sharpen their stamps. Marcus and I were at Fulton County Superior when the blinds came up. We paid fees, swore affidavits, slid forms across counters that smelled like 1,000 stories. The clerk stamped with that friendly thump that always comforts men who trust paper more than promises. "Chambers will see us," Marcus said, glancing at his phone. "We might get a narrow order today. Don't expect overnights. Expect structure." We sat on a wooden bench with names carved into it. Love notes turned into archaeology, and waited. 15 minutes later, Marcus came out of the door marked private with the exact half-smile you want from a lawyer on a Monday. 3 afternoons, he said. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Pick up after school, return by 7. Exchanges curbside. No commentary. No punitive cold discipline. The judge used the words appropriate winter attire. I wrote them down twice. That afternoon I parked where the order told me to, outside Jalen's school under a sky the color of paperwork. He burst out with the second graders, backpack thumping like a second passenger. His face found mine and changed the light. "Grandpa." "Hey, Captain," I said. "Need a specialist to test cocoa at a reputable lab?" He slid into the back, because I'm old enough to forget airbags on purpose. "Mom says I have to ride back here," he said, serious. "Mom's right," I said. Let's both be right. We went to Dupree's on Ralph David Abernathy, the kind of place that still believes in whipped cream like snowbanks. I kept my words inside their lane. We talked about a book on pterodactyls he'd fallen asleep on, and why fractions are just peace treaties between numbers. He tried on the green coat. It swallowed him and promised to spit him out taller. On the drive to their house, he said it without drama. Dad made me stand outside in January when I spilled milk. I know, I said. He stared at the window like it owed him a different winter. I was brave, he added, not brag, not complaint. You were, I said. Brave and cold are different things. At 6:52, we were at the curb. The order lived in my glove box like a quiet friend. Kiera stood on the porch, posture cut from glass. Darius hovered behind, armed with silence. Jalen squeezed me quick the way second graders say I love you without making it embarrassing. See you Wednesday, he said. See you Wednesday, I said. Bring that math. I got a calculator that beeps like a spaceship. Kiera took a step down the walk. I lifted my hand, palm out, a stop sign drawn with good manners. Curbside, I said softly, the way the order says softly. Her jaw flexed. You are tearing this family apart, Malcolm, she said, volume just for me. You think paper will protect you? I think coats protect children, I said. Paper just helps. Darius looked at me over her shoulder. 19 for a flicker. The boy who once asked me if heroes get tired. I gave him nothing he could confuse with triumph. Just a nod that meant, choose warmth when you can. Jalen went inside with his new green swallowing him. The porch light brightened, then settled. I sat in the car longer than needed, the order humming like a low note in the glove box. When I pulled away, I didn't watch the mirror. Old trick. You drive forward with what the judge gave you. At home, I did what keeps my hand steady. I stacked paper between Harm and the boy. Marcus emailed revised trust language, with locks you need fathering to open. I signed. I printed receipts for the coat and the cocoa and slid them into a folder labeled Jalen, routine evidence. I wrote a letter no one asked for. Darius, I will say yes to every help I can give you that does not make the house colder for your son. When you are ready to choose warmth over theater, call me. I will meet you anywhere they make people check their cameras at the door. I put it with the others. I hung Jalen's neck-size coat by my door like a promise with sleeves. I set a thermos on the counter and tested the zipper on a green parka that squeaked like a small new start. Then I turned the thermostat up 2 degrees because I could, and because sometimes the difference between a fight and a life is exactly that small. The next morning started with the sound of my own heartbeat counting the seconds before the phone rang. It was Aisha. We're good for now, she said, voice calm as a legal pad. The temporary order is active. Exchanges are curbside, and the non-punitive clause is binding. But Malcolm, prepare for pushback. Kiera won't take a loss quietly. She's already plotting her next act, I said, stirring my coffee with the kind of slow that hides nerves. The woman can turn sympathy into currency. Then you document, Aisha said. Every handoff, every word, every look that tries to rewrite the script. Judges like receipts. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen, watching morning crawl through the blinds, and tried to breathe like a man who hadn't been marked a lunatic at his own party. My phone buzzed again, this time, a message from Ben. Neighborhood apps lit up again. Anonymous post saying you're unstable, needs help. I wrote back, they can keep their theater. I've got paperwork. He replied, good. Paper beats rumor 9 times out of 10. The 10th just takes longer. By 9, I was out the door, headed downtown to Marcus's office, portfolio under my arm like armor. The air carried that late Atlanta humidity that feels like someone forgot to turn the oven off. His office sat above a Jamaican bakery, and the smell of fresh patties tried its best to soften the weight of law. Marcus looked up from his laptop when I entered. Morning, Mr. Reed. You slept. Define it, I said. He smiled. Good enough. We filed for a continuation of the temporary order, plus an emergency motion to restrict Kiera's communication about the case. She's spreading stories, social media, group chats, maybe even local blogs. We can't stop talk, but we can show intent to manipulate perception. Judges hate that. He handed me a printed copy of the motion. The top line read, "Motion for non-disparagement and digital conduct order." It was surreal seeing gossip translated into Latin phrases and numbered paragraphs. "When's the hearing?" "Thursday, if the docket holds." I nodded. "That soon?" He shrugged. "Family court runs on 2 clocks, pain and proof. Yours ticks loud in both." He poured us coffee from a thermos and lowered his voice. "Listen, Malcolm, I've handled 100 cases like this, but yours has a variable most don't: money. 32 million attract stories. It makes people forget how to love clean." "I've seen it," I said. "Money's like a magnet. Pulls loyalty if you hold it close, repels it when you spend it right." Marcus leaned back, eyes sharp. "Exactly. So before they spin this into elder confusion and paranoia, I want a full medical affidavit, something airtight, and maybe a witness who saw you sober, rational, alert at the party." Dr. Morgan's note covers that. Ben Carter's statement too. He nodded. "Then we build on it. Bring me everything in duplicate. The more ink on our side, the less noise theirs makes." That night, I drove through the city like a man chasing normal. The skyline looked like it had secrets it was too polite to share. I parked near the Beltline, sat under the yellow lights, and wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done since my first business grant 30 years ago. It wasn't for court, it was for breath. If truth dies quiet, let me be its noise. If the boy grows cold, let me be his heat. I didn't realize how tired my hands were until the pen slipped. Wednesday came, and with it, my second pickup. Jalen burst through the school doors, coat zipped, hat on crooked. "Grandpa," I yelled, "I got a star in math." "You got 2 stars, I said, holding up my palm for a high five. "One for the paper, one for surviving the week." He laughed, small and honest. The sound could fix engines. We stopped for cocoa again, because ritual is a kind of therapy. This time he wanted to sit in the corner booth, so he could see the street. "Mom says we might move," he said suddenly, watching cars pass. I kept my tone even. "Move where, Captain?" She said maybe to Uncle Leon's house. "It's far, like another school far." "Did she say when?" He shrugged. "Dad said not till spring. But Mom's mad. She says people around here gossip too much." My pulse ticked faster. Relocation wasn't just talk, it was strategy. If Kiara left Fulton County, my temporary order would turn into dust in another jurisdiction. She knew that. "Would you like that?" I asked him softly. He thought for a moment. "I like my teacher, and the rocket project with Dad, but Mom says new beginnings are good." "Sometimes," I said, "but good things don't always need to begin again. Sometimes they just need to be kept warm." He nodded like he understood more than he should. Kids always do. When I dropped him off, Kiara stood on the porch with a new kind of smile, tight-lipped, victorious. Darius wasn't home. "Everything goes smooth?" she asked, voice dipped in honey and arsenic. "Smooth as paper," I said. She stepped closer to the curb, lowering her voice. "You're overplaying your hand, old man. No one believes the poison story. Even the cops dropped it." "They filed it," I corrected. "Doesn't mean it's gone." "Doesn't mean it's real either," she said. "And if you keep dragging Jalen into your delusions, you'll regret it." I looked at her like I'd look at an incoming storm, steady, calculating, unafraid. "Ma'am, regret's just a word for something you already survived." Her eyes twitched. She turned, went inside, and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the porch light. Thursday's hearing was a study in restraint. The courtroom smelled like old coffee and government air. Judge Bennett, gray suit, gray eyes, patience of a tired saint, looked over our motion while Kiara's lawyer, a young man with too much gel and too little conscience, whispered to her like a stage director. "Mr. Reed," the judge said, "we have allegations of defamation, social media postings, and a possible intent to relocate the minor without notice. What's your primary concern?" "My grandson's warmth and safety, Your Honor," I said. "Everything else is noise." Kiara's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client has no intention of removing the child from state jurisdiction. She merely explored options after being subjected to online humiliation." The judge glanced over his glasses. Options that include listing the house. Kiera froze. The judge tapped his pen. Here's my ruling. No relocation pending review. No social media postings about the case or the child from any party. And exchanges will now occur at the local police substation, not curbside. Marcus leaned over and whispered, "That's a win." "It's a leash," I murmured back, "but at least it's around the right neck." The gavel hit wood. The sound felt like an exhale. Friday. I picked up Jalen under gray skies that looked heavy with opinions. The substation lobby was exactly as dull as the judge promised. Old posters about bike safety. A soda machine that ate quarters. Perfect. The sergeant at the desk signed the exchange sheet with a bored flourish. Kiera kept her phone down this time. Small mercies count. "Grandpa, can we build a rocket tonight?" Jalen asked, tugging my sleeve. "Of course," I said. "We'll give it wings." He grinned. "Dad said he wants to help next week." That hit me in the chest like sunlight after a storm. Maybe the parenting class was working. Maybe Darius was remembering warmth didn't disqualify you for manhood. We spent the evening gluing fins and testing balance, the smell of hot glue and cocoa turning my kitchen into a small miracle. At bedtime, I tucked him in on the fold-out couch under the quilt my mother sewed from scraps of my old work shirts. I left a note on the lamp. "If you wake up scared, I'm in the next room. If I snore, throw Jupiter at me gently." He laughed himself to sleep. Saturday morning brought the hit I'd been expecting. A letter from Kiera's firm, stamped urgent. Motion to compel disclosure of medical history and financial records. Translation: attack the witness when you can't disprove the crime. They wanted my full health record, a list of prescriptions, even proof of where every dollar from the sale went. I called Aisha. "They're going for confusion and greed." She sighed. "Let them. We'll give them receipts so clean they cut glass." "But Malcolm, don't engage. Every insult is an invitation. Decline gracefully." "Grace is expensive," I said, "but I can afford it." That night, while Jalen slept, I sat by the window watching the streetlights flicker. My phone buzzed again. Ben's text. "Heard from Charles. Lab came back. Residue was vitamin C and tartaric acid. Wine stabilizers. Not poison." I stared at the screen for a long time. My chest felt like a house losing heat. So she used something that looks harmless. That's the trick of modern poison, plausible deniability. Doesn't mean it wasn't meant to kill. I whispered to the dark. I poured a glass of water and raised it to the night. "To proof," I said quietly. "And to warmth, because sometimes that's the only antidote we get." Sunday arrived without ceremony. A thin drizzle and a silence that didn't trust itself. The kind of day that makes a man inventory his regrets before breakfast. I brewed coffee strong enough to hold a grudge and sat by the window, watching the street gather puddles like secrets. Jalen was still asleep on the fold-out, his small hand hanging off the edge, his breath steady and untroubled. For a child caught in a storm of adult madness, he slept like forgiveness. The lab report sat on my table, Ben's message printed in black and white. Residue consistent with vitamin C and tartaric acid. No known toxins detected. It should have been a relief, but the words landed like a riddle with a missing punch line. Kiera hadn't tried to poison me with something lethal. She tried to make it look like she could, without ever crossing the line. That was worse in a way. A ghost threat. No corpse, no crime. Just fear weaponized. She played the long game. Not death, but discredit. By 9, Jalen woke up and padded into the kitchen, hair doing its own weather. "Morning, Grandpa," he mumbled. "Morning, Captain," I said. "Dream anything worth keeping?" He grinned. "You built a rocket that could talk." "Did it say anything good?" "It said, always check your fuel twice." I chuckled. "Smart rocket." He sat down for pancakes, drowning them in syrup. While he ate, I drafted a note on my pad, one line for Marcus. Possible false poisoning setup. Seek forensic chemist to interpret residue results. The kind of footnote that might one day save a custody hearing. By noon, the house felt small. I packed Jalen's things, his green parka, his rocket parts, his notebook full of dinosaur math, and we drove to the police substation for the handoff. Kiera was already there, phone in hand, eyes cold as marble. Darius wasn't with her. The officer on duty nodded, clipboard ready. I signed the exchange form. Jalen hugged me with that quiet squeeze that means he understands more than the adults think. And then he was gone, hand in hers, walking toward a car that looked too expensive for mercy. "Mr. Reed," the officer said when they'd driven off, "you're handling all this pretty calm." "I used to chase storms," I said. "They taught me not to flinch at thunder." He grinned. "Still, most folks yell first, breathe later. I'm saving my breath for the next round." Monday morning, Marcus called. "I got the lab report through official channels," he said. "Ben was right. Nothing toxic. But don't let that fool you. Intent matters, not outcome. Still, it complicates things." "Complicates or dilutes?" I asked. He sighed. "Both. We can argue psychological intimidation, that she staged an act to make you believe you were poisoned. But proving that in court, that's a tightrope without a net." "So she gets to keep her halo?" I asked. "For now. But remember, most masks sweat eventually." I jotted that down. Marcus's words had a habit of aging well. He cleared his throat. "There's more. Her lawyer filed a motion to reconsider the custody schedule. Claims you're fostering anxiety in the child by discussing the incident." I bit down the urge to curse. I haven't mentioned it to him once. "They don't need truth," Marcus said. "They just need a story that sounds better than yours." "Then we'll give them receipts," I said. "Exactly. I'm scheduling a home visit with the court-appointed child advocate. Keep the house steady. No tension. No anger. You'll get steady," I promised. I've been practicing that my whole life. That evening, the house echoed too much. I walked out onto the terrace, the same one where this all began. The rust-colored stain was still faintly there, stubborn, like memory written into stone. I sat in the same chair, the one that still remembered the weight of a man waiting to die, and tried to imagine how Kiera's mind worked. If it wasn't poison, what was it? A test? A performance? Maybe she'd wanted to see if I'd notice. Maybe she'd wanted me to overreact, to look unhinged. If that was her goal, she almost won. Almost. Lightning blinked far off, the kind that never makes it to thunder. I remembered the first rule of storms. Sometimes the danger isn't what you see. It's what the air starts doing before you see it. Pressure drops quietly. I poured myself a glass of water, not wine, and raised it toward the city. "You'll have to do better," I murmured. The next day, the child advocate came. Miss Terrell, tall, early 40s, professional warmth with sharp edges. She wore glasses that caught the light like truth. "Mr. Reed," she said, shaking my hand. "I appreciate you seeing me on short notice. Appreciate you coming. Coffee, please." She followed me into the kitchen, scanning the space the way social workers do, checking for clutter, tension, unspoken ghosts. I let her see everything. The folded blankets, the half-built rocket, the photo of Jalen at the science fair. "You keep things organized," she said. "Habit," I replied. "Company built on data. I like when life matches." She smiled. "Tell me about Jalen." "He's light," I said simply. "He reads before breakfast, asks questions before bed. Kind kid. Too kind sometimes. World can't always match him." Her eyes softened. "And how's your relationship with your son and daughter-in-law?" "Complicated," I said. "My son's learning to unlearn what toughness means. His wife, she's learning how to weaponize perception." Miss Terrell scribbled something. "There was an incident, an alleged poisoning?" I nodded. "Alleged and unresolved. The police have a report. I didn't die, so now I'm eccentric." "Do you feel unsafe?" "No," I said, "but I feel watched." She paused. "By her? By everyone. Neighborhood gossip, lawyers. Even the mailman looks twice. That's how doubt works. It's contagious." She studied me for a long moment, then closed her notebook. "Mr. Reed, you sound tired, but not unstable. I'll note that. And I'll speak with Jalen this week. For now, keep exchanges civil. You've done well staying calm." When she left, I exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Calm wasn't cheap. It cost a piece of every heartbeat. Wednesday night brought a storm that meant business. Thunder stacked over Atlanta like artillery. I couldn't sleep, so I worked through receipts, every expense, every trust note, every photo. At midnight, the doorbell rang. No one sane rings bells at midnight. I checked the security feed. A figure in a hoodie stood half under the porch light, head down, male lean. My first thought was Darius. My second was don't open yet. Who is it? I called through the intercom. It's me, came a low voice. Ben. I opened the door, tension easing a notch. Rain streaked his jacket. You look like trouble, I said. Trouble looks back, he muttered, stepping inside. I got something. He handed me a flash drive wrapped in a plastic sandwich bag. Friend at the lab owed me a favor. He checked the chain of custody on your wine sample. Guess whose name's missing? I frowned. Kiara's? Not missing, swapped. The evidence envelope was signed in by an officer who wasn't on duty that night. Someone switched it after collection. I stared at the flash drive like it could explode. You have proof. Video timestamp from the evidence room door. 30 seconds of someone in gloves switching labels. Who? He hesitated. Too grainy, but the build small female, and she knew exactly where to go. I leaned back against the counter, pulse suddenly too loud. So the test came back clean because it wasn't my wine. Ben nodded. She's got reach, Malcolm. Or someone helping her. Someone in the department, I said quietly. God help us. Rain hammered the roof. The house felt smaller by the second. I closed the curtains, lowered the lights. You need to give this to Marcus, Ben said, before it disappears too. I will, I said. He looked at me. You sure you're up for this? You're fighting a machine. I built machines my whole life, I said. I know where the wires cross. He smiled sadly. Just don't get electrocuted, old friend. After he left, I sat alone at the table, the flash drive glowing faintly in my hand. Outside, thunder rolled low and deliberate. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was losing my mind. I was being hunted, and that was something I could finally understand. Morning broke like a bruise, purple and slow. I hadn't slept. The flash drive sat in front of me on the kitchen table, small enough to hide but heavy enough to tilt the room. Evidence, or at least the promise of it. Proof that I wasn't the old fool the whispers wanted me to be. I brewed coffee out of habit, though I could have poured gasoline for all the taste it had. At 6 sharp, I called Marcus. He answered on the second ring, voice gravelly but alert. Please tell me this is about something legal, he said. It's about something better, I said. Proof. Ben got security footage from the evidence room. Someone switched my wine sample. That woke him up. What? I've got a flash drive. Timestamp shows a person in gloves swapping labels. 30 seconds. Female build. He exhaled long and low. Bring it here. Now. Don't email it. Don't text it. Physical transfer only. I was already driving when you said that, I said, grabbing my keys. The streets were wet from the night storm, light crawling between leftover puddles like nervous ghosts. I drove slow, not from fear but from discipline, the kind you learn after losing everything once already. Marcus's office was empty except for him and the hum of his air purifier. I handed him the drive like it was a relic. He plugged it in, eyes narrowing as the footage loaded. A dim hallway, an evidence locker door, the soft glow of a security camera. A figure entered frame, short, slim, wearing gloves and a cap pulled low. They unlocked the cabinet, switched to envelopes, and walked out with a confidence that said this wasn't their first time. Can you freeze it there? I asked. He paused the video mid-step. The frame caught a fragment of reflection in the door's metal edge, a flash of pale pink fabric beneath the dark jacket. Marcus leaned forward. Zoom. The resolution broke apart into squares of light, but the detail was still there. A hint of rose-colored silk. Kiara owned a scarf like that. I'd seen it the night of the party. Looped around her neck, like a trophy ribbon. Marcus leaned back, tapping his pen against the desk. It's not definitive, but it's enough to raise hell. We need to protect the chain of custody, I said. Already ahead of you, he said. We'll send this directly to Internal Affairs with a motion to compel review. The fact that someone tampered with evidence from an active police file, that's radioactive. He looked up. But Malcolm, this changes the stakes. If Kiera, or whoever she's working with, knows we have this, they'll double down. You need to move carefully. No solo heroics. I'm not built for careful, I said. He smirked. Then at least pretend. That afternoon, I sat in the park across from Jalen's school, waiting for dismissal. The air smelled like wet mulch and pencil shavings. Parents clustered near the fence, trading gossip disguised as small talk. One of them, a woman from the neighborhood, caught my eye. Mr. Reed, she said, we're all praying for your peace. Heard things got complicated. Complicated's my middle name, I said gently, and she smiled embarrassed. Gossipers never expect you to answer in full sentences. Jalen spotted me and ran across the courtyard. Green coat zipped to his chin. Grandpa, we built the rocket launcher today. You did? Did it make orbit? Almost. Mrs. Feldman said it broke ceiling velocity. I laughed. That's my boy. For a few minutes, it was just us, sun, laughter, normalcy. Then a black SUV rolled up to the curb, tinted windows, and 2 clean tires. Kiera stepped out, all perfume and calculation. She wore sunglasses despite the cloud cover. New car, I said when she reached us. Upgrade, she said. Got a good deal. Deals usually come with receipts. Her smile didn't move past her teeth. Careful, Malcolm. You're starting to sound paranoid again. Jalen looked between us, sensing the frost, but not the reason. Mom, can Grandpa come over sometime? Not right now, baby, she said, eyes locked on me. We've got things to sort out first. Maybe when the weather's warm, I said softly, resting a hand on his shoulder. Keep your coat zipped, Captain. He nodded, eyes serious. See you Friday. When they drove off, the SUV left a streak of wet asphalt that felt like punctuation. Marcus called that evening. IA confirmed receipt, he said. They flagged the video for preliminary review. And I just got word, your court advocate, Miss Terrell, filed a preliminary report. She's on your side, Malcolm. Says Jalen's thriving under your care. Shows no signs of anxiety. Her words, stable, affectionate, emotionally secure relationship. I exhaled. That's the first good sentence I've heard in a week. Don't celebrate yet, Marcus said. Kiera's lawyer will get a copy tomorrow. Expect retaliation. Retaliation I can handle, I said. Lies bother me more when people believe them. The retaliation came faster than we expected. By morning, local news had the story, though not the truth. Business tycoon accused of fabricating poisoning to gain custody of grandson. They used an old press photo of me from a sale announcement, smiling, confident, too rich to pity. The segment was 2 minutes of polished slander, anonymous sources suggesting declining mental health, erratic behavior, and possible paranoia. I turned the TV off halfway through. The screen's reflection caught me mid-frown, a man trying to remember if truth still mattered. Then my phone rang. Malcolm, it's Darius. Hearing his voice felt like being handed both hope and a blade. Son, I said careful. How's Jalen? He's fine. But listen, Mom showed me the news. What the hell are you doing? You're turning this into a circus. I'm defending myself, I said. She's trying to bury me in rumor. Rumor, he snapped. You accuse my wife of poisoning you. I watched her pour it, Darius. I watched her stir it. You think I dreamed that too? Silence. Then softer. I don't know what to think anymore, Pop. I just know my kid's caught in the middle, and it's tearing everything up. I close my eyes. Then do what I'm doing, protect him. He exhaled hard. Maybe protecting him means keeping him away from all of this. From you. The line went dead before I could answer. That night, I met Ben at the old diner off Cascade Road. Neon buzzing, jukebox humming something from another century. We took a booth near the back. You saw the news? He asked. I saw it, I said. Didn't recognize the man they were talking about, but I saw it. He slid a small envelope across the table. IA contacted me. They want to meet Tuesday. Closed-door review. You'll need to testify about how you got the footage. I'll be there. He hesitated. You should know, Kiera's not working alone. I asked around. There's a detective, name of Sanford. Mid-level. Likes favors. He's the one who signed off on the evidence swap. I stared at the envelope. So she bought a cop. Or he volunteered. Ben said. Either way, the chain's dirty. Then we cut it, I said. He smiled, sad and proud at once. You really are an engineer, even now. Always fixing systems that weren't built for fairness. Somebody has to, I said. I drove home past midnight. Rain had given way to mist, the kind that erases edges. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something small and white tucked under my windshield wiper. A note, folded twice. I unfolded it under the porch light. You don't know who you're fighting. Stop before Jalen gets hurt. No signature. Just the smell of perfume I'd already learned to recognize. I stared at it until the paper went soft from the drizzle. Then I tore it into 4 pieces and dropped it in the gutter. Inside, I sat at my desk and opened a new folder on my laptop. Title, Storm File. I uploaded the video, the lab report, the court documents, every text and statement. Then I typed one line at the top of a new document. They think an old man won't finish the fight he started. They've forgotten I built my life on weathering storms. Thunder rolled somewhere far off again, but this time I smiled. The sky was just clearing its throat. Tuesday morning arrived thin and brittle, the kind of light that makes you question whether the sun came up out of mercy or obligation. I'd barely slept. The note from my windshield still ghosted through my mind. You don't know who you're fighting. That line clung to the edges of my coffee like oil. I'd seen plenty of enemies in my life. Banks that wanted to erase me. Investors who smiled while loading the gun. But this was different. This was personal. And personal is always messy. At 9 sharp, I drove downtown for the internal affairs meeting. Marcus met me outside the government building. Clean suit, steady pulse, legal pad tucked under his arm like a shield. You sure you want to do this? He asked. I'm too old to enjoy cowardice, I said. He smiled thinly. Then let's ruin somebody's morning. Inside, the IA office smelled of stale paper and unspoken regret. 2 investigators, Captain Duval, a heavy-set man with a calm that felt rehearsed, and Lieutenant Vega, sharp-eyed, no jewelry, led us into a small conference room. Mr. Reed, Duval began. Thank you for coming in. We received your counsel submission regarding the evidence locker incident. We've reviewed the video footage you provided. We'd like you to walk us through how it came into your possession. I nodded. A friend, Ben Carter, acquired it through an internal contact who owed him a favor. Not the cleanest chain, but cleaner than what your officer left behind. Vega arched an eyebrow. You're aware unauthorized access to departmental security systems is a serious offense. I'm aware tampering with evidence is a bigger one, I said evenly. Marcus cut in, tone polite but surgical. My client is here voluntarily, providing critical material to assist your inquiry. Any focus on how he obtained the footage before verifying its authenticity would be unfortunate. Duval held up a hand. We're not prosecuting Mr. Reed. We're confirming. The footage appears legitimate. The locker log does show a secondary entry the night of the incident, signed by Detective Alan Sanford. Same Sanford who filed the original report? Marcus asked. Yes, Vega said. And that's irregular. The collection officer was Patrolman Gomez. There's no record of authorization for Sanford's access. Duval leaned back, studying me. Mr. Reed, do you believe this tampering was coordinated with your daughter-in-law? I don't deal in belief, I said. But the person in that video knew what they were after, knew which envelope to swap, and someone told them my case mattered. Vega jotted something down. We'll pursue both leads, internal misconduct and possible civilian collusion. For your safety, we recommend limiting contact with Ms. Reed and Detective Sanford until further notice. Marcus thanked them, formal as a handshake. We left with nothing tangible but the promise of movement, and promises, in my experience, are currency that loses value fast. Outside, the city felt louder than usual. Sirens somewhere east, construction to the west. Life carrying on, unbothered by other people's chaos. Marcus checked his phone. IA's opening a file. It's something, Malcolm. If they find proof, this whole case tilts. Tilting's good, I said. Toppling's better. He smiled. One step at a time. Back home, the house felt too quiet. The terrace stain glowed faintly in the noon light, like a scar that refused to fade. I poured myself a glass of water and called Ben. They believe us, I said. Doesn't mean they'll act, he replied. Departments protect their own. Watch your back. I always do. You ever think about getting out? Just letting the storm pass. I thought about Jalen, about a small hand gripping mine, about Kiara's perfume on that note. Storms don't pass if you're still standing in the field. He sighed. You're a hard man to pity, Malcolm. Good. I hate that word. Wednesday's pickup was gray, all drizzle and unspoken tension. The substation's fluorescent lights hummed like bad thoughts. Kiara arrived late, sunglasses again, though the sky hadn't offered sun all week. Jalen ran to me, grin splitting his face. Grandpa, we got a field trip to the planetarium. That's big news, I said. You ready to see the stars up close? I want to sit by the telescope. I smiled. You can tell me all about it Friday. Kiara stood by the desk, pretending to scroll her phone. Her nails tapped a rhythm against the screen. You look tired, Malcolm, she said without looking up. I look busy, I said. Busy chasing ghosts. Busy chasing truth. They tend to move the same. She tilted her head. You know, when you said you wanted to protect Jalen, I didn't realize you meant from yourself. The officer behind the counter cleared his throat, a reminder that the walls had ears. I signed the exchange sheet, crouched to hug Jalen, and whispered, Keep your rockets pointed up, Captain. He nodded. Always. When they left, the officer shook his head. She's got venom, that one. Yeah, I said, and she knows how to smile while using it. That night, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. Stormwatcher@protonmail.com. Subject line, You're not paranoid. Body, the footage you have is real, but it's not the only copy. Sanford's not the top of the ladder. Follow the evidence trail to the property storage unit. Locker 112C, Peachtree Precinct. That's where the first sample still is. Bring someone you trust. No signature. No attachment. Just that. I read it 3 times. Could have been bait. Could have been help. Both smelled the same. I forwarded it to Marcus with a note. If I end up in jail or missing, start here. He replied in less than a minute. You're not going alone. Thursday evening, we met at the Peachtree Precinct's back lot, the kind of concrete purgatory where old police cruisers go to rust. Marcus had borrowed his brother's SUV. Ben joined us, flashlight in hand, eyes sharp from too many years of knowing how to be careful. The evidence lockers were housed in a detached unit behind the main building, half forgotten and overgrown with kudzu. The keypad on the door was ancient, key access manual. Still got contacts. Marcus asked Ben. Ben grinned. You don't retire from locksmithing. You just get slower. 2 minutes later, the door clicked open. Inside smelled like dust and disinfectant. Rows of gray lockers stretched into dimness, each labeled with faded numbers. 112C. I whispered. We found it halfway down the aisle. Padlock, old brass, easy pickings for Ben. He worked silently, professional, and in 30 seconds it opened with a soft metallic sigh. Inside, 2 sealed evidence envelopes, both labeled Reed Malcolm, Incident 3A14. Marcus's eyebrows lifted. 2 envelopes. One's mine, I said. The other's what replaced it. He photographed everything before we touched a thing. Then he slit the newer envelope carefully. Inside, a small glass vial wrapped in plastic. Faint pink residue dried along the inside. Marcus pulled out a portable UV light from his case. Lawyer by trade, forensic nerd by hobby. The residue glowed faintly blue under the beam. That's not vitamin C, he murmured. Ben whistled low. You've been living with ghosts, Malcolm. That's the real stuff. I felt the ground tilt. Proof. Finally. Marcus sealed both envelopes into new evidence bags with fresh labels and signed the chain documentation himself. "We're done here," he said. "And this time, no one swaps anything." On the drive back, rain started again, soft but relentless. Atlanta's skyline shimmered like a confession. "You think IA will run with this?" Ben asked. "They'll have to," Marcus said. "We've got photographs, timestamps, chain of custody signatures. If they bury it now, it's conspiracy." I stared out the window. She almost got away with it. Ben glanced at me. "Maybe she still will. Truth's one thing. Conviction's another." "I don't need a conviction," I said quietly. "I just need the world to know I wasn't crazy." Marcus nodded. "By tomorrow, they'll know." But deep down, I knew better. In my line of life, storms don't end when you find the lightning. They end when you survive the flood that follows. And I could already hear the thunder forming again. By Friday morning, the rain had found rhythm. It drummed steady against my windows, a gray metronome keeping time with the pulse in my jaw. The evidence from Locker 112C was locked in Marcus's office safe, cataloged and timestamped twice over. For the first time in weeks, I had something solid, something heavier than rumor, proof with a pulse. But storms don't end when you find the lightning. They end when everyone who caused it gets wet. At 8:15 a.m., Marcus called. "IA's confirmed the chain, Malcolm. The vial's going to an independent toxicology lab. They'll test for organophosphates, cyanogenic compounds, heavy metals, anything that could have killed you slow or quiet." "What's the turnaround?" 48 hours if we push." "I've already pushed." He hesitated. "But you should know. Sanford's been suspended pending inquiry. Kiera's name came up in his bank records. A cash transfer 2 days after the party." I felt it then, a kind of stillness that doesn't belong to peace. "How much?" 10,000. "Not enough to buy silence," I said. "Just enough to rent it." "Stay close to home, Malcolm. If she knows the net's closing, she might get reckless." "I've been reckless longer than she's been alive," I said, though the bravado sounded old even to me. After the call, I stood at the window watching the rain make rivers down the glass. Somewhere across town, Kiera was waking up in her designer pajamas, reading the news she thought she'd written herself. I wondered what it felt like to know your lies had started to leak. By noon, Ben came by with sandwiches and a look that said bad news didn't bother showing up alone. "Word's out," he said, setting the bag on the counter. "Someone leaked the locker footage to the press." "That was fast," I said. "Too fast. The video online's a short version, 30 seconds, edited. You can't see her face, just the scarf. Comment section's already picking sides. Half saying it's her, half calling you a vindictive old man." I smiled without humor. Even truth needs a PR agent these days. He poured coffee into mugs that hadn't cooled properly. "The thing is, the edit cuts right before the handoff to Sanford. Makes it look like you're framing a random cop." I clenched my jaw. "So now we're both villains. Until the lab result hits, yeah. Then let's give them something to choke on," I said. Ben studied me a moment. "You planning something stupid?" "Probably," I said, "but it'll be organized stupidity." That afternoon, Jalen's pickup was different. Kiera didn't come. Darius did. His face was pale under the lobby lights, his usual easy smile gone. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice low. "Always." He nodded toward the parking lot. "Walk with me." The rain had paused, leaving the asphalt slick as ink. "Mom called," he said. "She's losing it. Said you're orchestrating a smear campaign." Then IA called me to ask about money transfers. 10 grand from her account to some detective. "So you know," I said. "Yeah, and I don't want to believe it. But she won't give me a straight answer. Just keeps saying you forged something." "She's cornered," I said. "Cornered people throw noise before they throw truth." He rubbed the back of his neck. "You really think she tried to poison you?" "I don't think. I know. She meant for me to swallow it. Maybe enough to send me to the hospital. Maybe enough to scare me quiet. She didn't count on my eyes working better than my heart." He exhaled through his nose. "God, Pop, what did I marry into?" "A mirror," I said softly. The kind that flatters until you realize it's warped. He looked up at the sky, jaw tight. Jalen's staying with me tonight. I'm not letting her near him till I figure this out. That's a start, I said. He met my gaze then, and for the first time in years, I saw the boy who used to follow me through thunder just to see where the sound lived. Whatever happens, he said, I don't want you fighting this alone anymore. You just said the magic words. I told him, welcome back to the weather. That night, Marcus texted, lab-confirmed organophosphate derivative, lethal in high enough dose. This wasn't symbolic, Malcolm. It was real. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Proof. Finally. But proof is only the beginning of war. 15 minutes later, Marcus called again. IA's moving to arrest Sanford. Kiera's being subpoenaed for questioning Monday. We'll file for full protective custody for Jalen in the morning. I felt my chest tighten. Not fear, just the weight of vindication. It's heavier than hate. Thank you, I said, for believing me. He chuckled. Beliefs for churches. I like evidence. Sleep didn't visit that night. I walked the house instead, touching walls like they were old friends. Every scar on the wood told a story. The dent from Darius's first bike crash, the scratch from moving day, the patch where my late wife hung her last painting. The house had outlived everyone's mistakes but mine. Around 2, I heard a car slow outside. Headlights cut across the blinds, lingered, then faded. My pulse spiked. I checked the security feed. Nothing but rain and shadow. Still, I double-locked the door and kept a crowbar by the frame. When the heart won't sleep, the mind starts drawing maps. I sat at the desk and wrote a list under the header. If I don't make it to court, Jalen, all assets in trust, primary guardian Darius, contingent Aisha Cole. House, transfer to Jalen's educational fund. Evidence, copy stored with Marcus and Ben. Cloud backup under encrypted drive, code Hearts Dante Freeze. Statement, to be released to press upon my death. I signed it. Date, time, calm hand. Then I slid it into the safe with the rest of the storm file. By morning, the air smelled like metal. I was halfway through toast when Darius called again. She's gone, he said. What do you mean gone? Kiera. Left sometime after midnight. Her car's missing. Her phone's off. She emptied one of our joint accounts, 40 grand. No note, no nothing. I closed my eyes. She knows they're coming. She took her passport, he said. I checked. Then she's not just running from court. She's running from herself. What do I do, Pop? Keep Jalen safe. Don't answer unknown numbers. I'll handle the rest. An hour later, Marcus confirmed my fear. She wired money to an account in Nassau. Same pattern as the transfer to Sanford. The feds will flag it soon, but if she's already on a plane, then she's gone. He sighed. We'll file an interstate alert. She can't hide forever. I looked out at the gray light gathering above the rooftops. You'd be surprised how long forever can last when no one's looking. Saturday evening, I drove to Darius's place. He met me at the door, eyes bloodshot, Jalen asleep on the couch inside. I told him Mom's on a work trip, he said. He bought it. For now. You did the right thing, I said. He leaned against the wall. You think she'll come back? She'll have to. People like Kiera don't disappear. They just circle back when the narrative gets cold. He gave a hollow laugh. You talk about her like she's weather. She is. The dangerous kind. The one that looks calm before it breaks your windows. We sat in silence, listening to the small sounds of a child dreaming. Soft breaths, a rustle of blanket. You ever get tired, Pop? Darius asked finally. Every day, I said. But exhaustion's just proof you're still fighting. He nodded slowly. Then let's finish it together. For the first time in months, the words felt like light instead of lightning. Back home, I sat at my desk and opened the storm file. Added one final line to the running log. She ran when the truth finally caught up. The storm's moving east now, but storms never really die. They just wait for a new sky to ruin. I closed the laptop. The rain had stopped. The air was holding its breath, that fragile calm before dawn. Somewhere out there, Kiera was running. But I'd learned something over years of building weather machines. You can't outrun what's already in the air. Sunday arrived hollow, all quiet, light, and waiting. I woke before the alarm, heartbeat already in gear, like my body had received news my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The house felt too still, the kind of stillness that comes before something shifts. I made coffee, sat by the window, and scrolled through the news. No mention of Kiera's disappearance yet. IA's investigation had leaked, though. Headlines about a police evidence tampering scandal, linking an unnamed officer and a domestic poisoning case involving a retired technology magnate. They didn't have to name me. Everyone in Atlanta already knew. My inbox was full of requests for comment. Journalists loved a comeback story until it started proving them wrong. I ignored them all. I had only one priority left, Jalen. Around 10, Marcus called. His tone was brisk, professional, but I could hear fatigue dragging at the edges. She's still off the grid, he said. No airport check-ins, no credit card use after the transfer. We've flagged her passport with Homeland Security, but if she used another name, she's got money, not imagination. I interrupted. She'll slip eventually. He exhaled. I admire your confidence. Also, IA finished processing the toxicology. It's confirmed, ethyl parathion derivative, concentration consistent with ingestion-level poisoning. Malcolm, that's attempted murder, no qualifiers left. The words sat heavy in the room. Not surprise, just confirmation of the thing I'd already known in my bones. What happens now? I asked. Sanford's in custody. He's talking. If his statement matches the bank transfers, we'll have enough to charge Kiera in absentia. I'll file for a permanent custody order for Jalen tomorrow morning. I let out a slow breath. Do it. And Marcus? Yeah, thank you for believing before the paper caught up. He chuckled dryly. I told you beliefs for churches, but I'll admit, this one feels good. By noon, I was at Darius's house. He'd aged in a week, eyes bloodshot, beard rough, but there was a steadiness in him now, the kind that only comes when denial burns itself out. Any news? He asked before I'd even stepped inside. Proof's in, I said. It was poison. Not metaphor, not theory. Real chemical. He sat down hard on the couch, hands covering his face. Jesus. She's gone, Darius. But that doesn't mean she won't reach out. He looked up. You think she'd try to contact Jalen? She already did, I said quietly, sliding my phone across the table. A message had come through that morning from an unknown number. Tell my son I love him. I had no choice. They were watching me too. He read it twice, jaw tightening. You think it's her? I know it is. That's her syntax, drama first, truth never. He rubbed his temples. What do we tell Jalen? The truth, I said. But the truth in doses he can survive. You start with, Mom's sick, and we're keeping you safe until she gets better. Darius nodded slowly. Yeah, safe first. Always, I said. We spent the afternoon building the second rocket Jalen had been designing. A sleeker one, red and silver. Darius helped him glue the fins, careful, patient. For a brief moment, the three of us looked almost like a normal family. Just hands, laughter, the soft click of plastic meeting purpose. Grandpa, Jalen said suddenly, when rockets go up, do they ever get scared? Every single one, I said. That's how they know they're about to do something important. He smiled at that, and I thought maybe he'd survive all this better than any of us. That night, I got a call from a number with no ID. My gut said answer, and my gut's usually right. Hello. A pause. Then her voice, steady, calm. The voice she used when she wanted to sound in control. Malcolm, Kiera said. You're a hard woman to lose, I replied. You always did underestimate me. I gave you too much credit once. Now I'm just measuring the debt. A quiet laugh, like ice breaking. You think you've won? You think proving I poisoned you makes you safe? I think it makes you guilty. I'm not the only one, she said. Sanford wasn't working for me alone. Who else? You'll find out soon enough. Check your storm file. You missed something. Before I could answer, the line went dead. I went straight to the office. The storm file sat on the desk, exactly where I'd left it. I opened it, papers, copies, flash drives. Everything seemed untouched. But the smallest drive, the one labeled backup audio, was gone. She'd been here. I checked the locks, the windows. Nothing broken. But someone had moved through the house while I'd been at Darius's. The realization tightened my throat like wire. I opened my laptop. My security feed had a 12-minute blackout window from 3:12 p.m. to 3:24. During that gap, a single static image had been looped, a perfect forgery of the empty living room. Whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. The missing drive haunted me more than the threat. On that drive were all my voice memos from the investigation, dates, thoughts, phone logs, a running commentary of Kiera's unraveling. But there was one file I hadn't told anyone about. One from months before the party. April 4th, 2025, 11:22 p.m. I'd recorded it after a phone call with an anonymous tipster who'd warned me. Someone close to you is going to make sure you never see your grandson again. Not through custody, through coffin. At the time, I thought it was paranoia. But the voice had sounded familiar. A man. Older. Smooth. Now that file was gone. I called Marcus immediately. Someone broke in, I said. They took the backup drive. You sure? I don't misplace ghosts. He exhaled. We'll send someone to sweep for prints. But if they loop your feed, this isn't Kiera working alone. This is someone with access, digital or departmental. Sanford. Maybe. Or whoever he answers to. He paused, then added, Malcolm, we might be stepping into something bigger than domestic law. That parathion compound isn't homemade. It's military grade, decades out of production. That means someone supplied it. Someone who wanted me dead quietly, I said, and someone who could get their hands on restricted toxins. The room tilted slightly around me. So Kiera wasn't the architect. She was the delivery system. Marcus's voice dropped. Exactly. I hung up and went to the terrace. The night air felt wrong, too still, too measured. Somewhere out there, she was running, but someone else was pulling the strings. I thought back to the first call I'd gotten months ago about selling my company. There'd been a man from a defense contractor, Atlas Dyne Systems. He'd offered triple valuation for Reed Weatherworks, wanted the storm mapping tech for weather analytics in conflict zones. I turned him down. I told him I wasn't interested in building weapons out of wind. His name had been Edward Lorne, and I remember the voice on that April recording now. It was his. I went back inside, opened the old contract folders, and found the email thread. Lorne's signature stared up at me. Lorne Strategic Procurement, Atlas Dyne Systems. My pulse steadied, not fear now, but recognition. This wasn't about Kiera. This was about the company, the sale, the data I refused to hand over. And the best way to silence me was to make the world think I'd lost my mind. They'd almost pulled it off. I stared at the dark terrace, where that rust-colored stain still marked the stone, and whispered to no one, You picked the wrong old man to bury. Before bed, I wrote a new entry in the storm file. The poison was real. The puppet wasn't alone. Atlas Dyne wanted my tech, and when they couldn't buy me, they tried to erase me. Kiera was just the storm front, beautiful, loud, and disposable. But thunder doesn't move by itself. Someone makes it. I looked at the city through the Rain Street glass. Somewhere, Edward Lorne was sleeping like a man who thought the wind answered to him. He was about to find out what happens when the weather fights back. By Monday dawn, sleep was an unreturned call. My eyes burned from too many screens and not enough peace. The house was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the storm still tapping its fingers on the roof. It wasn't just rain anymore, it was rhythm. A countdown. I sat at my desk, scrolling through the old contracts from Atlas Dyne Systems. Every clause a reminder of how far this storm had traveled. Their interest in Reed Weatherworks wasn't about sensors, it was about control. Our weather mapping algorithms could predict atmospheric disruptions within 2 meters of accuracy. The same data that saved crops and warned cities could, in the wrong hands, guide drones, missiles, chemical dispersions. They wanted precision weather warfare. I told them no. And now here we were. I called Marcus before 7. Atlas Dyne. I said when he picked up, What about them? They're the ones behind Kiera. He sighed. I had a feeling you'd say that. You knew. I suspected. Sanford's financials showed deposits from a shell corporation, Halbert Consulting. I traced it back last night. Guess who owns it? Atlas Dine. Bingo. Jesus, I whispered. He continued. It gets deeper. Lauren, your old contact, is under federal contract for strategic meteorological research. The Parathion compound? Manufactured under a defense exemption. They've been running off-book chemical trials under climate control experiments. And when I refused to sell, they turned my company into a liability. I said, they needed you discredited before they could acquire your patents. If you died, the estate sale would have given them everything. So Kiera was the delivery mechanism, I said quietly. They gave her motive, means, and money. Marcus hesitated, and when it went wrong, they cleaned up. Evidence swap, tampered chain, media spin. I felt the air thicken. How do we stop them? You don't stop a storm this size, Malcolm. You redirect it. We make noise so loud the right people have to listen. He paused. I've got a contact at the Ledger. Investigative journalist. Name's Cora Villiers. She doesn't scare easy. I'll set up a meeting. Good, I said. I've got a story she'll want to hear. By noon, I was walking into the cafe on Auburn Avenue, where Marcus said she'd be. Cora Villiers looked exactly like someone who'd already seen the worst in people. Sharp eyes, simple clothes. No smile unless it served a purpose. She stood when I approached. Mr. Reed, she said, you look less paranoid than your reputation suggests. I save paranoia for people who deserve it, I said, taking a seat. Marcus joined us with a folder thick enough to rewrite history. Everything you need's in there, he told her. Lab reports, IA transcripts, bank transfers, photos of the evidence swap. It all leads back to Atlas Dine. She flipped through the papers, scanning quickly. If this is real, it's a national story. But I'll need corroboration. Sources inside the company. Verification of the toxicology chain. You'll get it, I said. I have backups, and I still know people who built half their data servers. She met my eyes. You're not scared of them? I've been scared plenty, I said, just not uselessly. Cora smirked. Good answer. She tapped her pen. All right, I'll start digging. But Mr. Reed, if you're right, they won't let you breathe easy again. I've been holding my breath for years, I said. That night, Darius called. Dad, he said, the cops found Mom's car, abandoned at a rest stop off I-16. Passport's still inside. No sign of her. Anything else? Yeah, he said. There was a note on the seat. Said, they promised me safety. Tell Jalen I tried. The line went quiet except for rain tapping against glass on both ends. She's gone, isn't she? He asked finally. Maybe, I said. Or maybe someone made her vanish. Either way, her chapter's closed. We focus on the boy. I'll keep him close, Darius said. But Pop, what if this gets bigger? What if they come after us too? They already came after us, I said. The mistake was thinking I'd die quietly. 2 days later, Cora called from an unlisted number. Her voice buzzed with restrained excitement. You were right, she said. I found a source inside Atlas Dine, a chemical engineer named Ria Kapoor. She worked on the Parathion derivative. Says they ran field tests under a joint contract with the DoD. When you refused to sell, Lauren told his board you were a security risk. He had orders to neutralize you. Neutralize, I repeated, the word burning slow. She has documents, Cora said. Emails, shipping logs, internal memos. She's scared, but she'll talk. She wants protection first. Where is she? Savannah. She'll meet us tomorrow morning. But she insists it's off-grid, no phones, no tracking. Meet her at the marina, 6 a.m. Marcus coming? I'll bring him. You bring proof you're still breathing. The next morning, I drove south with Marcus. The highway was empty, fog hugging the asphalt like unfinished thoughts. You sure about this? He asked as we crossed into Chatham County. Nothing's sure, I said. But the truth's got to start somewhere. The marina sat quiet, boats rocking against the mist. We waited until the sun edged over the horizon. Then a woman approached, early 30s, dark hair tucked into a cap, eyes darting like a sparrow's. "Mr. Reed?" she asked. "Ms. Kapoor," I said, extending a hand. She didn't take it. "We can't stay long. They've been watching me since last week." I transferred files to a secure drive. Everything, emails, lab data, purchase orders. She pulled a small black flash drive from her pocket. "This proves Atlas Dine supplied the compound. It also shows they planned a disinformation campaign against you." The whole paranoid widower narrative came straight from their crisis PR team. Marcus took the drive carefully. "We'll get this to Cora. She'll make it public." Rhea shook her head. "You don't understand. Lauren's already cleaning house. 2 researchers vanished last month. If this leaks wrong, people die." Before I could answer, a low rumble echoed from across the water, a black SUV turning into the gravel lot. "Too late," Marcus said. "They found her." "Go," Rhea hissed. "Take the drive." She backed toward the pier. I reached for her, but she slipped away, sprinting down the dock toward a small fishing boat. The SUV door slammed open. 2 men in suits stepped out. No badges, no hesitation. "Move," Marcus shouted. We ran. One of the men shouted Rhea's name. Then came the sound I'll never forget, a muffled pop, like a cork pulled from a bottle. Rhea stumbled mid-stride, crumpled onto the boards. "God," Marcus gasped, grabbing my arm. "Go, Malcolm." I wanted to run to her, but reason beat instinct. We dove behind a stack of crates as another shot cracked the air. I heard footsteps, fast, deliberate, moving closer. "Marcus," I whispered, "the drive?" He held it up. "Got it." We crawled toward the parking lot, keeping low. The SUV engine roared to life, reversing fast. I caught a glimpse of Lorne himself behind the wheel, calm, expressionless, as if he were driving to lunch instead of away from murder. And then they were gone. Police came an hour later, drawn by the report of gunfire. They found Rhea dead. No shell casings, no witnesses. The cameras at the marina had malfunctioned. Standard procedure for professionals. Marcus gave a statement. I gave mine. The drive was already duplicated and hidden in 3 locations before noon. Cora met us in a downtown hotel, face pale, eyes sharp with purpose. "They won't bury this," she said. "Not if I go wide enough. International outlets, watchdog agencies, human rights councils. If we hit them all at once, Atlas Dine can't suppress it." "Do it," I said. "Let the wind spread it." Marcus put a hand on my shoulder. "This isn't over, Malcolm. They'll fight back." "I'm counting on it," I said. Every storm shows its shape best when it thinks no one's watching. That night, I wrote a new entry in the storm file. Rhea Kapoor, dead for telling the truth. Lorne still moving pieces, but his board won't stand under the light. Tomorrow the story breaks. Let it. If I go down, I'll go down making thunder loud enough to wake the whole city. Outside, lightning flickered over the skyline, reflecting off the wet streets like veins of silver. The storm was gathering again, but this time it was mine. By Tuesday morning, the story was everywhere. The Ledger broke it first. Defense contractor linked to domestic poisoning cover-up. Within hours, half the major outlets had picked it up. Cable anchors stumbled over the chemical name. Pundits speculated about row corporations, and my photo, gray hair, steady eyes, filled every feed with the headline, "The Man Who Said No." It should have felt like vindication. Instead, it felt like standing in the center of a siren. Marcus called from his office downtown. "It's happening, Malcolm." Cora hit every channel. The documents from Rhea's drive are verified. Atlas Dine scrambling, press conference at noon. And the Attorney General's office just opened a federal inquiry into Lorne's division. I rubbed my temples. "They'll try to blame her," I said. "Rhea. Paint her as unstable. Or frame it as a lover's quarrel gone bad." "Maybe," he said. "But the autopsy report won't play nice with that version. They're cornered." I stared out the window, watching the city stretch itself into day. Cornered animals bite hardest. Marcus hesitated. "Then keep your doors locked. And stay visible. They can't hit you if everyone's watching." He hung up before I could answer. By 9, the press was on my lawn. Satellite vans lined the street. Reporters shouting questions through the gate like penitents demanding confession. Mr. Reed, do you believe Atlas Dine targeted your family? Is it true your daughter-in-law was involved? Did you fabricate any of the evidence? I didn't open the door. I'd already said what mattered, the paper trail, the proof. Anything else was noise. I called Darius instead. He sounded exhausted but alive. We're seeing the news, he said. Jalen's at school, and I told his teacher to keep him inside if they see cameras. Good, I said. Keep routine. Stability's armor for a child. He paused. Dad, is it over? Storms don't end, son. They just move. He sighed. Then I'll keep watching the sky. At noon, Atlas Dine's press conference streamed live. I watched from the kitchen table, volume low, heart steady. Edward Lorne stepped to the podium. Same calm smile, same surgeon's precision. We categorically deny all allegations, he began, voice even. Atlas Dine has never engaged in any illegal activity. The individual known as Rhea Kapoor acted independently. We mourn her tragic death, but reject attempts to link her to our company's lawful operations. He kept talking, all polished denial and corporate absolution. But behind his right shoulder, one of the reporters, Cora, raised her hand. Mr. Lorne, she said, can you explain why your department's internal emails reference Project Tempest, and why one of your subcontractors, Halbert Consulting, funneled payments to Detective Alan Sanford, now in federal custody? Lorne blinked once. Those documents are falsified. Would you submit to a forensic audit? She asked. He smiled. We cooperate with all lawful inquiries. Then you won't mind if I forward the originals to the Justice Department. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was tectonic. You could feel the air shift. Lorne's smile didn't falter, but his pupils did that small contraction you only see when someone's fight-or-flight switch flicks on. Ladies and gentlemen, he said finally, this conference is over. He walked off stage. The cameras caught him slipping a phone from his pocket as security closed ranks. The storm had officially made landfall. That evening, the power went out. Not citywide, just my block. My house. The hum of appliances died. The refrigerator clicked off. Silence folded in on itself, heavy and expectant. I grabbed the flashlight from the drawer and checked the breaker box. Fine. The meter outside? Dark. Someone had cut it. Then came the sound. A low hum from the driveway. A car idling with its lights off. Old habits die loud. I reached for the crowbar by the door. Heart steadying not from fear, but from calculation. Whoever they were, they wanted me cornered. I flicked off the flashlight and moved toward the side window. Through the slats, I saw the shape of a man stepping out of the car. Tall, suit jacket, umbrella tucked under his arm though the rain had stopped hours ago. He didn't knock. He just stood there, head slightly tilted, like he was listening to my walls breathe. Then he called out, Mr. Reed. I knew the voice. Lorne. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. Long way from your podium, I said. He smiled, the kind that doesn't travel to the eyes. Some conversations don't belong to cameras. Neither does trespassing. He stepped closer. You've caused a great deal of trouble, Malcolm. I've caused light, I said. Trouble's just what light looks like to men in the dark. He chuckled softly. You think this ends with a few headlines? You've embarrassed powerful people. Do you really believe your little crusade will survive the week? I leaned against the frame. I survived your poison, your lies, your ghost stories. I'll survive your tantrum too. His smile flattened. You should have sold. We offered you fortune, protection, legacy. Instead, you made enemies. I've lived long enough to know enemies tell the truth about you. He took a step back, as if reevaluating me. You're not afraid. I am, I said. But fear's just information. It tells me which direction to aim. His eyes narrowed. Careful, Mr. Reed. Men who play hero in old age often die unremarkably. Maybe. But I'll die remembered. You'll die audited. The silence between us tightened. Then he smiled again. Cold, professional, done. You won't have to wait long to see how this ends." He turned, walked back to his car, and drove off. No lights, no license plate visible. I waited until the sound faded, then exhaled through my teeth. My hands were steady. That scared me more than shaking would have. An hour later, the lights came back. The power flickered on, as if nothing had happened. But on my desk, the storm file folder sat slightly ajar. I hadn't left it that way. I opened it, everything intact, except one thing. The original flash drive from Rhea. Gone. My breath left slow. He'd been in my house before. Maybe during the blackout. Maybe while we talked. I checked the security feed. Every camera looped the same frozen image from 10 minutes before the outage. He'd hacked the system, clean as surgery. The drive was gone, but not the copies. Cora had her set, Marcus had another, and I'd hidden the third, where no corporation would think to look. Inside the hollow casing of the broken weather sensor that started all this, buried beneath my mother's azalea bush. They could take symbols. They couldn't take proof. The next morning, the Ledger ran a follow-up. Federal investigation expands into Atlas Dine executives. Lauren's name was officially listed. Subpoenas issued. Share prices falling. Investors panicking. Cora's byline was on every outlet. She called mid-morning. "They're running," she said. "Half the board's lawyering up. Lauren's on a private jet manifest to D.C. Claims he's going to assist in the inquiry. He's going to destroy what's left of the evidence," I said. "Maybe," she said, "but not before we drop Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? "Public release. Every file, every photo, every memo. No redactions. Once it's in the cloud, it's immortal." I smiled for the first time that day. Immortality's underrated. "You ready for the fallout?" she asked. I was born in it. That night, thunder rolled again. The storm that had followed me for months finally broke open. I sat on the terrace under its weight. The stain on the stone washed almost clean now. For the first time, I didn't see Kiera's ghost in it, or Sanford's corruption, or Rhea's fear. I saw a pattern. Every act of cruelty and silence aligning like coordinates in one long forecast. This was the cost of truth. Sleepless nights, broken trust, a name dragged through mud. But beneath it all, there was something steady. Warmth. Darius called just before midnight. "Pop," he said, "the boy's asleep." He asked if the storm outside was ours. I smiled, watching lightning crawl across the clouds like handwriting. "Tell him yes," I said. "Tell him it's the one we built." He laughed softly. "You think it's over?" "No," I said, "but for the first time, the wind's blowing our way." I hung up and looked out into the rain, the city shimmering in reflection. Somewhere out there, Edward Lorne was trying to rewrite weather itself. But storms don't take orders from men. They answer to pressure. And I was done holding mine. The morning after the storm broke, Atlanta smelled like metal and ozone, the scent of things washed clean but not forgiven. Sunlight came through the blinds like hesitant mercy. I hadn't slept, but I didn't need to. The city was awake, and for the first time in a long while, it was listening. News anchors' voices spilled from every TV in the neighborhood. Atlas Dine executives under federal investigation. Whistleblower files trigger global audit. Edward Lorne missing after private jet diverts mid-flight. Missing. That word carried a special kind of finality, the kind that implies closure without proof. I turned off the television. Silence at last felt earned. Marcus called mid-morning, his voice tight, with the kind of exhaustion that borders on relief. "They got him," he said. "Lorne. Homeland intercepted the jet over Virginia. He tried to reroute through the Caymans, filed under a fake diplomatic charter. They grounded him and seized every onboard device. He's in custody." I leaned against the counter, the world tilting just enough to remind me I was still human. "You're sure?" "As sure as the government gets. They've got his internal correspondence with Kiera and Sanford, messages arranging the poisoning setup, the PR spin, everything. Rhea's death sealed the case. He's facing conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction, federal fraud, and espionage under civilian tech misuse." I let out a breath that felt older than my lungs. "And Kiera? Interpol's tracking her. Her name just went public. Whatever protection she thought she had is gone. For a long time, neither of us spoke. You could hear the weight of months settling into silence. Finally, Marcus said, "You did it, Malcolm." "No," I said quietly. "We did it. Rhea did it. The truth did it." He chuckled softly. "You're a hard man to compliment." "I'm just allergic to pretending." The next week unfolded like a slow thaw. The city's chatter shifted from scandal to sympathy. Strangers nodded at me on the street, the kind of nod reserved for survivors. Letters came in the mail, people thanking me for standing up, for proving that corruption doesn't have to win quietly. I answered a few, kept most. Some truths don't need revisiting. On Thursday, the Ledger ran its final feature, The Reed Files, how one man's refusal exposed the shadow economy of weather warfare. Cora's writing was sharp, unsentimental. She didn't paint me as a hero, just a man who refused to drown. That was enough. By the end of the month, the court granted Darius full custody of Jalen. The judge's ruling mentioned an established pattern of endangerment and the grandfather's critical role in ensuring the minor's safety. I didn't attend the hearing. I was in the garden, pruning the azalea bush under which the last copy of Rhea's flash drive still slept, sealed in its hollow casing. I never dug it up. Some evidence belongs to the soil. Darius called after the verdict. His voice broke mid-sentence. "Pop, it's over. We did it." "You did it," I said. He laughed. "You never let me have a clean win." "That's what parents are for." He hesitated. "Jalen wants to see you this weekend. He says the rocket's finished." I smiled. "Then I'd better make sure the sky's ready." Saturday came bright and impossibly blue. Jalen was already in the yard when I pulled up, rocket in hand, goggles on, a commander in miniature. "Grandpa," he shouted, "it's ready for launch." "Looks aerodynamic," I said, inspecting it like NASA's finest. "Dad says you used to build machines that talk to the sky." "I still do," I said, "but this one looks like it talks back." We set it up in the field behind the house, a patch of open grass, damp from morning dew. Darius stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, smiling the way a man does when he finally trusts peace not to leave. "You ready, Captain?" I asked. Jalen nodded, holding the small controller like a relic. "Countdown." "Always," I said. "5," he grinned. 4, Darius joined in. 3, all systems go, I said softly. 2, and then together. 1. The rocket lifted clean, slicing the air, a trail of light and paper smoke cutting through the blue. For a heartbeat, all sound vanished. Just wind and wonder. Then it fell. A perfect arc, gentle, recovered. Jalen hooped. "It worked." "It did," I said, "because you built it with patience." He looked up at me. "You think Mom would have liked it?" I crouched beside him. "I think she'd be proud of how strong you are. And one day, when you're older, you'll know all the reasons we had to build rockets instead of walls." He nodded, not understanding yet, but one day he would. That night, back home, I wrote the final entry in the storm file. It's strange how quiet feels louder after thunder. The city hums again. The air smells like forgiveness pretending to be rain. Lorne's in a cell, Kiara's a fugitive, and I'm a man the world finally believes. But truth doesn't belong to me. It belongs to whoever keeps it breathing next. I closed the laptop and looked out toward the terrace. The stain on the stone was gone now, washed away by months of weather and will. The world had erased the mark where it almost lost me. Maybe that was mercy. Maybe that was irony. Either way, it was clean. 2 weeks later, I received a small package in the mail. No return address, just a plain brown box. Inside was a weather sensor, one of mine. Old, scratched, but still functional. There was a note taped to it. "You built machines that could read the sky. Maybe it's time you let them rest. CV. Cora." I smiled and set it on the windowsill. It clicked faintly, still measuring wind it didn't need to. That night, thunder rolled again in the distance, not violent, just alive. I went out to the terrace with a glass of water and sat in the chair where this all began. The air was warm, the kind that carries memory instead of warning. I thought of Rhea, her bravery, of Marcus, who fought the storm with paper and law, Of Darius, who rediscovered courage through love. Of Jalen, who saw only rockets, not wreckage. And of Kiara, wherever she was, running, hiding, or already gone. I hoped, absurdly, that she'd found some corner of quiet, far from poison and pressure. Monsters, too, deserve a moment to look at their own reflection. The sky flickered once, distant lightning tracing faint lines of gold across the horizon. For the first time, I didn't brace for impact. I raised my glass to it. "We made it through," I whispered. "All of us, somehow." The wind moved, soft and slow, brushing against my skin like a pulse finally finding its rhythm. Sometime after midnight, I opened the front door and stepped out barefoot onto the wet grass. The city lights shimmered on puddles, small mirrors scattered across the world. A car passed somewhere far away. A dog barked. Life, ordinary and persistent. For months, I'd lived waiting for catastrophe. Now I stood in its absence, learning how to breathe without armor. I realized then that storms don't change people. They reveal them. They strip away the pretense until what's left is the raw, unvarnished self. Mine wasn't perfect, but it was intact. Before bed, I made one last note in the storm file. Not a report, not evidence, just words. If anyone ever finds this, know that the weather always tells the truth. You just have to listen long enough to hear it. I closed the lid. The house exhaled around me, boards settling, pipes humming their tired lullaby. And as sleep finally came, I dreamed not of poison or power or headlines, but of a boy's laughter echoing under an open sky, and a rocket cutting through the blue like forgiveness made of fire. End of the storm file.